Ja, velkommen til alle sammen. Folk kommer løbende ind, så vi giver det lige de akademiske 5 minutter. And sorry for speaking Danish. Welcome everybody. Just give 1 minute more before we start up. People are coming into the room. Very nice to see you all. We are here in Maarbjerg, so we can hear the bells from the municipality of Copenhagen. So we know we are ready to start, and just in 30 seconds we will start. Yes, welcome everybody. Nice to see you all in names, and we are very much looking forward also to see you in real person when next time we meet at our next event. My name is Morten, and I will be your host today regarding this webinar, and I'm very dedicated to this, focused around building up pharma companies with good leadership and good people development. Today we will talk about specialist tracks in the pharma sector, and we will deep dive into that. Just a short note on Manners. We are a company located here in Copenhagen with around 100 employees. We also have offices in London, in Malmö, Stockholm, and Aarhus. Besides the 100 employees, we have 150 specialists around the world that are delivering our leadership programs and organizational development projects in all regions. Today, you will be joined by Ann-Katrine, myself, and Peter, and we will go into this inquiry regarding what do we do with the senior specialists and how do we build a way of working where we don't miss the opportunities regarding getting the most out of the senior specialists. Ann-Katrine and I will start with a short conversation about the challenges as they see them in Lundbeck and what they have done to try to get over them. And Peter will talk more about the specialist pipeline that we have built and designed together with Ida. Some of the people in the room and in this little community that we're building together through these network meetings, today a webinar, last time a physical event, and next time a physical event, are all you guys out there. Very warm welcome to you. It's so nice that we can do this together and that we can share insights and really build up knowledge regarding creating workspaces and pharma companies that are succeeding. In Manners, some of the projects that we are doing and have been doing are here. This is our DNA, this people first focused and what we call Move What Matters, which includes all the different parts of the organization. And there is people working on real projects, people working on real problem solving and adapting the changes that are coming. So we can succeed and actually perform as a company. Next time we will meet, and I hope you will take your phone right now or your calendar up and put this into the calendar. Is the 10th of September from 9 to 11 at Ida, where we will be looking into this whole thing about how do we create companies where we have a new way of leading, where we are actually leading for the future. And we will invite in Fujifilm Diosense Biotechnology to talk about their journey and our journey with them regarding leadership development in a while hyperscaling the company and the production side. Last time we met, we talked about Agile, and we had Carsten with us, who is also with us today. So really nice to be together again, Carsten. And last time we focused on this thing about how Novozymes have looked into the transformation of creating a team-based organization, going agile, actually maybe related to today's topic as well. How do we create the best environment for the senior specialists to succeed? Carsten talked and told us about this thing about how working with this thing about creating teams that are dedicated, project teams that are dedicated to each other, stable teams that are continuously working on delivering projects, having this kind of focused on creating flow within the teams, and also creating empowerment in the teams regarding that they are the one deciding when they have the capacity to take in new projects, and they are the one actually deciding what is happening within their team, as long as they are working towards the priorities of a prioritized backlog that the leadership teams and the company have set up. One of the things that Carsten told us about was this thing about the intention of doing this thing about creating fewer handovers, better and more happy teams that's more high performing, you could say. And then this thing about creating a more agile way of working where we don't have this rigid allocation thing where a lot of flow is actually blocked. Yeah, and Stuart and Stuart is also here today, focused a bit about this thing about, so what can we do when we look at this? We can increase stability in teams. We can increase the focus on actually succeeding with cross-functional teams, with high resource allocation that is actually delivering working projects and products while they're going forward. And we also talked about that this transformation really needs some competences within the team to succeed when we are in a new situation with self-empowered teams. So now we will go into this thing about the specialist tracks in the pharma sector, and I will welcome Ann-Katrine here, who's next to me. So welcome you, Ann-Katrine. Will you just put some few words on yourself?
Sure. So my name is Ann-Katrine, and I'm a P&C business partner in Lundbeck. I work in our R&D organization, or supporting our R&D organization in global clinical development, in our regulatory affairs, and in our project and portfolio management. So those who are responsible for moving our projects through the pipeline.
And thank you so much for coming, and also thank you for the collaboration. It is very valued from my side. So we've talked about, Ann-Katrine and I, 4 questions that we will go through this thing about. What is the biggest challenge? What would Lundbeck have liked to have known earlier in the process, working with this thing about retaining senior specialists? And also this thing about what have made a positive change or a positive difference in the approach. And in the end, also a bit about what, Ann-Katrine, you see regarding this thing about the leadership behavior that we have to build up, and the leadership teams focused on this area, and what can we see there that's interesting towards retaining and developing senior specialists. So if we start with the first one, this thing about what do you see as the challenges?
Yeah, so I've thought about it and discussed with my colleagues, and I think 3 things come to mind. So the first thing is definitely think around development and growth. So what we see sometimes for our senior experts is that they reach this plateau in their career. So it's difficult for them to see, so what is next step for me? And that can result in some disengagement or lack of engagement in the organization. So how do we manage that? And very closely linked to that is also when they don't see and that they're creating an impact, when their skills and deep knowledge around specific topics doesn't match the task that they are given, that also leads to dissatisfaction in the organization. Mm-hmm. And then there's a little more of an external challenge. So we also need to acknowledge that these people are in high demand. They sit with this very specialized knowledge that often other companies are also very interested in. So making sure that they are placed in a good place, or where they should be when we look at the compensation and package and all that.
So it's an interesting paradox, this thing about that they get a bit invisible. And in the same time, they are very there's a lack of this kind of resources, and there's a very competitive environment regarding attracting them.
Yes.
Why do you think this paradox is there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure I have the answers, but what we have experienced is that there is a little bit of a bias towards these people. So we see them as these very experienced, also more senior people. So we forget that they might have a wish to try something new, or they have transferable skills that we can use in different areas, but we forget to ask them because we assume that they want to stick within their very specialized area. So having these conversations, and now we're getting into some of the other questions, but having an open conversation on what is it that you would like? Where do you see yourself? Is there something going on in the organization where you could see that your skills within this very specific area can be transferred into something else?
And this thing about being in this process and building up all the experience you have, is there some good advice to the earlier Ann-Katrine, or what would you have liked to have known earlier regarding this area?
I think a more structured approach around how to talk about and talk with these employees. So a very concrete example is that we have talking talent sessions in our organizations with the leaders a couple of times a year. But what we see is often it's not these senior experts who is brought forward as a talking talent. So they're not seen as a talent, which is a little bit weird when we know that their skills is in high demand. But we have a different understanding of what is a talent. So I think there is a bias towards that. And I wish that we have uncovered that bias maybe a little bit earlier in my areas.
Yeah. So maybe talking experts or something, a new level of this kind of focus to. And what have made a positive? If now we're talking about the challenge, but what actually made a positive difference in Lundbeck regarding this?
Yeah. So we're starting having these development talks with all employees, and having that open conversation also with very senior experts has uncovered that they actually also want to change careers or try something else or work in a project or an area that they might not have their deep knowledge in, but they can definitely use some of the knowledge and expertise they've had in different areas. So, having those conversations where leaders come back and say, oh, I actually talked with this employee and they want to try something different. How can we facilitate that for this person? That's really helpful. And then I think another part which we have experienced is that we see in Lundbeck that these very specialized people have ended up in leadership positions. For some reason or for many reasons, they are not interested or they're not really thriving in those positions. So instead of resigning and then going to another company to be an expert, having an open dialogue with your manager saying, I want to try something different. Can I go back to being a specialist? Then we can retain that expert knowledge where it fits best. Yeah.
I know you're talking a lot about innovation in your and we also have this whole thing about empower. And as I meet the senior specialists, that they are really the key to this kind of the innovation and also there's something about this empowerment. Could you put some words about how do you see this? How could we work with this higher empowerment to these kind of roles?
Yeah, it's definitely a behavior that we need to see, or that we see from the senior leaders, that they create this or empower these experts, involve them in high priority projects or strategic decisions without the leadership responsibility, but put them in situations where they can be empowered to make the right decisions. That is definitely something that we see, and that we can also see that it creates engagement for the senior experts, because now they are really involved in making strategically important decisions.
And what is your what is the pitfalls regarding if you look at the leadership teams and the behaviors there, or what is it that we need to succeed with regarding getting the right culture where the senior specialists don't get invisible? So could you put some words on this thing about the leadership teams and the behaviors there, and what do you see, and where's the low-hanging fruits?
Yeah. So you said yourself empowerment. So we need to talk with leaders, and you need to empower these employees so they can create innovation, and not within their own field of expertise, but also spread it out in other areas where they might not be super comfortable, but we see that they have the knowledge to really drive the innovation outside of their own area. And then there's this thing around being curious, continue to be curious about development, career development for these employees. It might be a little bit of a different toolbox we need to pull in than we do with younger talents or leadership succession plans, but creating opportunities for mentorship or responsible for SME teams is something where we at least have seen that these experts, they thrive, and they can see that they have a major impact on what we do.
Yeah. So if here in the end you should give yourself a good advice for the years to come, or for the years and sum up maybe the reflections here, what could be like one thing you will work even more with going forward?
But I think it's this structured approach.
Yeah.
So when we talk about talents, how can we make that the broadest definition possible? So it's not just about young talents or for leadership succession plans, but also for those key employees where we know that it's a scarce resource. We know they have deep knowledge that would be difficult to find anywhere. So how do we make sure that we utilize them even more? I think we need to put it a little bit into structure to make sure that we have those conversations, and so they're not forgotten or because we have this bias that we sometimes forget them.
Thank you, Ann-Katrine, and thank you for the conversation. And we will get back to you in the Q&A session coming up later today. But right now, everybody that's part of this webinar, please now go to the chat. And now it's your turn also to contribute to this knowledge sharing part of the event. Please try to write in some of your reflection about what is the problems that you are trying to solve. You know the question, and now try to make the reflection around what is going on in your reality, and what is it that you can see that you need to work with or try to find solutions for. So please go to the chat right now and just write one line, everybody. Then we are contributing to a collective pool of insights. Yeah, and we will continue now. So now we will go to the specialist pipeline and go to the reflections there and the work done. So I would very warm welcome you, Peter, and you can take the stage, and I will walk out of the picture and come back later.
All right. Thank you, Morten, and thank you all for spending some time with us this morning. My name is Peter Maarbjerg. I am the Vice President in Manas, and I'm working with Morten and Stuart and other colleagues on quite a lot of organizations, and in this case, especially also on the pharma sector. What I'm going to introduce to you today is a research project that we did about a year ago, we started it out and had some research done on what is actually motivating specialists, what kind of competencies do specialists need, or competences, sorry, do specialists need, on different levels of their career path, basically. And also what kind of value do good specialists actually contribute to the organization. Now, the reason that we looked into this was that we could see that there's a lot of fighting, you could say, a war on getting the right talent to your organization. We could see a lot of specialists, lots of highly skilled people changing jobs eventually, and sometimes that would actually put back either a development phase or a production phase of a business. So we were looking into this and thinking, okay, what's going on? What is it that makes a good specialist move to a different company? I mean, sometimes you would think, okay, I can get some better conditions here. I can get a higher paycheck, or I can get some sort of influence that I didn't have before. And that would be, of course, the you could say more traditional way of thinking. What is it that is actually motivating for my career development? But when we started that, just to try to figure this out, we put up some hypotheses on that especially, and then started talking to quite a few specialists, doing some extensive interviewing on what is it that they're actually looking for in a job. What is it that they thrive in, and what is it that they look for in a position that they would have in an organization? So first, just to give you a few words on this, and some of you might know this. This is quite an old framework, basically, but on different sorts of careers and looking into what is the motivation that we can find. So the first part we did was to look into this and maybe try to, could we resemble some of this to the specialist? And the point here being that probably the most, you could say, the most similar career development would be that of experts. And what you see here is when we look at what is it then that experts are looking for as their motivation, we would see some, well, they actually respond on this, that what they like is to get the professional knowledge, get security. It's actually written twice there, I'm not sure why, and then develop on their skills, but basically become better at what they do. And keep working in that sense. So when we're looking at why is it then that people sometimes change, and we talk to specialists about this, it was basically when some of this went down, or that the position that they were offered actually as a career development would change from this to something else. And I'll get back to some of the pitfalls you can find in this, because sometimes we all think a little bit traditional about what is the career development that people like. So we think about getting higher up in the hierarchy. We're thinking about higher pay and bonuses and stuff like that. But it was really interesting to see that there's actually some other motivational factors that's put into work when we're talking about experts and specialists. To use another one, like what is the rewards that a specialist is actually looking for? And I just want to highlight a few of those as well. What you can see that instead of putting more money into the bank or having a higher position, what we were looking at here is it's actually training, a possibility to develop your own skills. Budget responsibility, and this actually also talks into the fact that a lot of specialists want to be as independent as possible. So basically, if they have an area of expertise and they have a budget and sort of the freedom to develop within that area, well, that's definitely something that people really like. Long-term employee benefits make sure that this is a good, a safe environment for them to thrive in. You could say also some peace of mind, basically, to become better, to constantly dive into the specialties that they have. retirement planning could work. And something was really interesting about this is looking at where you can find ergonomic, comfortable, stable workplaces. So you won't find a lot of specialists saying, oh, it's great to be in a great open office with a lot of people talking all the time. These are people who like to really dive into the work that they're doing and concentrate. That's basically a point. Yeah, and as I said before, safe working environment so you can have good discussion. So what we did was that we engaged with Ida on the STEM sector. So we went to quite a few different sectors in the population of specialists that we talked to. Now, what we were looking for then is what are the natural tracks for a specialist, and looking into some of the official titles that people could have, and then try to see, okay, how can we have a representative from each of these levels that we defined eventually on this one. And just to give you a few words on it, starting out with specialist, senior specialist, program specialist, and then we put on another one we call a chief specialist on this. And what you'll see is that this might not be a completely traditional pipeline where you have the transitions that you know from the leadership pipeline, but basically to also sort of illustrate that there are some circular moments in this. And as I said before, this is actually a really interesting career development part that you see sometimes, that and we'll get back to that as well, if you reach, I think Ann-Katrine used the words, you sort of reach a limit to where you can excel more, and then the organization maybe can't see itself in developing that specific skill. And it makes specialists leave the organization. And what we also found when we talked to them is that they have no problem in going down in this pipeline again if it means that they can concentrate on what they are really good at. And I think that's one of the very interesting points. And also as an organization, and to keep your competitiveness, it's really important to be able to recognize that. And you know, I would say be a little bit scared of it, basically, because it will be that if you can't supply the motivation of the specialist, well, they might change to another company and they might start from new, basically. So a few words on it. Specialists on the first level here, motivated by delivering some technical tasks, task solving, and also contributing to the organization about what are you best at. Of course, the first line of specialists would usually be out of school, still very focused on the theoretical parts and eager to put that into work for your organization. If you look at the senior specialist, then we found that the motivation here is the steep professional, personal development, and by having a higher degree of responsibility for how their own tasks are solved. So basically here we found the autonomy that I mentioned before, that when you rise in the specialist tracks here, you want to be looking for more and more independence for your work, for the area that you are working on. On the program specialist, on the other hand, then we find that specialists who get to this level motivated by their position as an expert and enters into cross-disciplinary collaboration. Basically, the sense that now you are an expert, now you are, you know, you're the one that people come to and ask for good advice on the specifics that you do. And then you can put that to work in cross-disciplinary collaboration across the organization, and also try to find sort of a more holistic picture of the organization and not less the market that you're part of. So basically also perhaps get a commercial understanding to a certain degree about what is it that we want to deliver and what we can deliver as a business. Now, then the last one we talked about this, that when we spoke to a lot of specialists about this, because, you know, if this had been a leadership pipeline, then you would be at a very high level at this point in the organization. You would have a large leadership span. You would have a large budget responsibility. But what we found was that when we actually get to this point, and if you're a pure specialist in that, then we found that you're motivated by exercising some very professional management through the solid expertise of having technically and strategically decisive position for the company. So when we talked about these, the chief specialists, what we found was that in very highly specialized organizations, the chief specialist is actually sort of the knowledge person, and sometimes you need to leave them be, basically, because they are very, very structured, very, very competent thinkers and developers in many situations. And you don't want to put them into leadership. That's basically one of the points here. Because what we found also was that sometimes when you get to a certain point in the leadership track here, then there will be a movement towards bringing you into a leadership position, and either as a team manager. This might not be as visible, but over here you will actually, if it was more visible, you would see the leadership pipeline. So we call this that there's sometimes a visit over to the leadership tracks that you might have. And just to a disclaimer on this, some specialists are motivated by this and others are not. But we decided we had to put this in because it's such a traditional way of thinking of the career development. But you will actually also find quite a few specialists when they get to this point. They need to be team leaders. They need to manage other specialists and perhaps in an area. They don't like that. It's just to put that out there. And they might leave your company if that is the only way that you can actually promote or in other ways reward their efforts that they do for your company. All right. So again, for the analysis that we did, what we were looking into this, what kind of competences is it that we could identify that the specialists need in their progress in the tracks that we find. First one, we're looking at what kind of professional competencies is needed for all levels of the specialist, and then, you know, just as we do in the leadership pipeline, we're looking at what kind of competencies, what kind of value do you create, and then it differs quite a bit when you move forward in the pipeline. All right, so this could be sort of a subject-specific immersion and skilling. How can you also help the organization become better? We'll get back to those as well. What we also identified here is that it's definitely very important to build relational competencies. That, you know, I think that what Ann-Katrine also said was that sometimes you regard very highly skilled people as a little bit, you know, peculiar, you could say, or you know, a little bit on the side, and you want to leave them a little bit alone. And why is that? Why is that? And sometimes it is actually because the specialists themselves might not have the relational competencies to actually function and work in a larger organizational setting. So how do we train specialists also in the corporation in communicating what they do? Because I mean, it's sought for by many, by both the recipients, but actually also from the specialists. So how do we get them able to also be part of the organizational community, being part of the work that we do here? Okay, and the last one are the organizational competencies, and that's when we start to work into an understanding of the business, understanding of the market, and you know, a knowledge, a bit deeper knowledge about what is it that we create, why do we do it, and how do we make money on it, basically. All right. just to jump through a few of those, and then I'll send you all these slides, so don't worry if you can't read. There's a lot of text on these. But basically, the analysis that we did in this was to see, okay, where would you put the level needed in the different competencies on each level of the specialist pipeline. So level 1, what we found was the professional competencies should be really high. That's when you identify some very good specialists that you want to keep, you want to retain in your organization. When we're starting out, then the relational competencies might not be as important as the others that you find. You start to build that, definitely, but you shouldn't necessarily be looking for that when you are hiring in specialists, because what they would really like is to develop further on their skills and not necessarily be a part of all sorts of communities that you could. And also on the organizational competences is not as important in this level. And these are conclusions made from all these interviews that we made, where we talked to specialists about this. Is this something that you could have used, just as Morten said just before? What would you have wished you knew before? And this was basically, the results that what kind of competencies was needed when you are at the specialist level, the first level of the tracks. Okay, the motivation that we find is that when you are on the first level here, motivated to work with the latest technologies, knowledge, do you provide the techniques, the labs or whatever you use on a specific level that is actually high enough for you to strive in this as a specialist. And also the joy of seeing projects come to life, basically be part of that as well. What we also found that was the last one was to look at the organizational value. How do you deliver the professional knowledge to the team? And how do you support your colleagues? How do you get the motivation, the curiosity within the area that you are working in as well? All right. Next level, what we see here is then that we used a bit of a scale here and trying to move a little bit on what kind of competencies is needed on the next level. So when you get into being a senior specialist, basically still very high on the professional skills that you need to have. And then what you also would see that is that the relational competencies needs to move. Basically, you need not to be frustrated that people don't understand what you say. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to create those relations in the workplace that will keep you safe, that will keep you comfortable, you could say, in your work. And also with the knowledge that comes with that people are actually appreciating what you do. Yeah. And on organizational competences, you would also see this moving a little bit. And when we talk about organizational competences, basically working in a way that you can have a responsibility for your own project. It can be, it's also develop your own portfolio of tasks. And as such, moving a little bit more into this autonomous area where you actually the person you go to on certain issues. On the next level, the program specialist, and here's where you really need to look into how are you supporting these people in the right way. When we look at what is the competences needed to succeed in this level, getting high on the professional competences still, develop the skills, and as I said before, the motivation also is continuously to keep improving basically. You have the relational competences also rising quite a bit on this one. And then the organizational competences, it will be at this level that you have quite a lot of touch points. You will have the relations to other parts of the business. And you need to be able to build some organizational competences, also a knowledge about what is it that you are doing, what are the others doing, and how do we support each other the best way on this one. We also start looking into market orientation. Are we in the right place? How does that look towards our competitors and stuff like that? We really need some of that information when you get to the program specialist to succeed in that role as well. All right, and just to take the last one, and this was where as I said before, this is a bit special when we look into to chief specialist, because what you would see here on the competencies level that we have here is basically very, very high on the professional skills that you need to have, because this is where you are in a position where you are the best, you are the expert, and you are in many ways also critical for the commercial value and the business development, basically, that you have in your company. What we also see here is that we actually put both the relational competencies a little bit lower, and you know, in regards to that these are people usually that you need to leave alone. You don't want to give them a leadership responsibility. You don't want to give them a lot of roles around the business. You know, be very, very visible to a lot of people. When you are at this level, this is what we found was that then you need to be able to concentrate. You need to focus on your research, on your development of new products, and keep continuing to become better, to become even more of an expert. That's really the motivational factor also when we are in the highest level. Of course, people like this are part of the top of the organization to some extent. They might not be doing their finance, they might not be doing their quality assurance, they might, you know, there's so many things that others should take care of. And that's basically also the signal here is that yes, you will be part of the top of the organization, but you need to still have a very specific area of expertise, and you do not want to challenge these people on their budgeting and how did that go. You want them to keep working in the sense that they are motivated by. So what we see here, motivation, new responsibility, it could be higher responsibilities, but without the personnel manager, because you don't want to annoy people basically by giving them something that they are not happy about doing. Now, I'm just about to finish here, but what we just talked about initially was this that the specialists sometimes have this visit to the leadership pipeline. And as I said, it was a little bit mixed conclusions on this. That some actually think, okay, this is okay, I like that. That's nice. But others would be to, nah, that's not me. I'm moving to another place, and I'll look for somebody who wants to make me develop my skills the best way. And then even if it means that I start somewhere else in the funnel, basically. And we thought that was a quite interesting find here, that the motivation that you need to build here is to make sure that you actually have specialists who are able to fulfill this new position. If you don't do that, they might leave. They will probably leave. Okay, I won't lose this. So one of the things that I just want to add to this, and as I said, you want to be able to put forward a little bit of possibilities for specialists to develop, also in the changes in the funnel that we can find in the specialist track. So again, when we take into account what is it that specialists like, well, it is you could say the independence. It is to on time, on my time, and when I need the stuff that I need. And it could develop into both being career coaching. It could be some new skills that you're supposed to take. It could be some executive. So what we decided to look at, so how can we do this in a very, very, very agile way, basically, and making sure that we can actually take some of the ideas that we'll find from a lot of you could say a lot of platforms. I usually call this the Airbnb of coaching, and we're trying to sort of make sure that there are a wide variety of coaches available in all different countries, and basically that you can book them in at your own time and at your own price. So that's one of the things that we're working on how can we actually help develop, how can we help businesses also in getting closer to this. So just summing up a little bit, I want just to say that what we found in a very increasing way is that the importance of having good specialists and being able to retain good specialists is actually quite crucial for many organizations. And the ability to actually hold on to them, just as Ann-Katrine said before, if you do the wrong thing, they won't have any struggles in moving down in the organization or moving to another place or starting a new skill. That's even also an issue here, that some might change the area of expertise that they have because they think, okay, the fun part here is to develop and grow. So help them do that, and you'll be in a better place. So, all right. I think that would conclude mine, and we will move further into a Q&A session here. Morten,
yeah, so very inspiring to hear, Peter, and everybody. Now it's time that you have the possibility to ask a question. So please go to the chat and ask a question, and then and I will also try to just have two questions for you guys. So. So what I would like, just as they're writing in, I would like just to ask you this thing about. I was quite inspired with this, the what we could call the chief specialist element, and this thing about getting like a more organizational competences. Because like as I see it, some of the things that the companies in the pharma sector is struggling with is this thing about having the right commercial competences within the R&D process earlier, and I found that was quite interesting. Is there something there about like building up commercial competences with the specialists, or would that be like a cat and a dog in a closed room? So is that a possibility to try to look at how do we take these like CTO level kind of specialists and also give them the commercial insights of the innovation process?
Yeah, I would say that definitely it's possible, but what's interesting here is that how do you actually apply that to a specialist? And if you, I mean, for many of us other career paths, basically you would learn the budgeting, the commercial, by getting a lot of budget responsibility or commercial responsibility. Then you get your KPIs. So, okay, you need this product, you need to sell so much of this. And that would be actually not very motivating for many specialists. But if you can, add the skill as something that you really need to know about, and then grow the interest, basically, that this is also an area of expertise that is needed for the business and needed for me. So I don't know if you have experience in that as well.
Yeah. So a very specific example comes to mind. So in clinical development, we have a very senior expert part of our due diligence when we do mergers, acquisitions, or looking at what's out there in the market. So that could have been the SVP for clinical development. He's also involved, but she is actually the lead on anything that comes in. She is the go-to person. So of course there's the expert element with disease areas and what does that mean, but she's also working together with the commercial organization and the finance organization. So in that way, keeping her within her space of expertise, but also exposing her to other parts and exactly developing that organizational knowledge.
I was working with a windmill production company, global production company, and some of the experts there are the ones that have innovated the windmills, and they have direct access to the CEO of a global company, and at the same time, maybe they don't have the right, we could get even more out of them if they understood the commercial part of having a global, world-leading windmill company. So there was something there, and then another question was this thing about stakeholders. So this thing about how do we create the situation where the senior specialists get the relational competences to really be symmetric, also be symmetric with the VPs and the leadership teams. What should we do to really give them the power competence to go into the relations?
Yeah, I would say, training is a lot of answer to many of those questions, basically. Because of course you can learn relational skills. You can work on your networking skills. You can meet other people, and it might be uncomfortable in the beginning, but I mean that's basically how you build some of that. And also you could say one thing that could work also is and you probably need to be a little bit careful about this, but try to encourage also the specialists that you have to sort of market a little bit about their expertise. Because what you'll find is that one of the things that specialists love to talk about is what they do. and if you can put the setting up that it's you could say sufficiently a safe situation to be in, it's not too broad, it's not too many people approaching you at the same time, then it's really some helpful stuff, because everybody likes the feedback that you can get. Okay, this is interesting. This was good. I like that. So you can build that, definitely.
But then I think there's also a change in our work culture, you can say. So diversity is very much on the agenda. We don't have to look and sound like the same, all of us. So if we set the scene right for people to set them up for success in such a situation, saying, so here we have an expert. What they are experts. So don't expect them to come with all sorts of commercial insights, but set the scene right for them to operate on that level. I think there will be no problems, because we recognize that the diversity is so important in those senior level discussions as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This is crucial for sort of future proofing your business as well. So if you can't do that, you'll be regarded as a very old-fashioned, a very boring workplace, basically, and you will get the talent, they'll go somewhere else, basically. So I completely agree on that. It's really important. I have a few questions from the chat that we might jump into. Specialists who want the checklist or the recipe for what to do to get a promotion. How do you build that? Definitely you need in your business to work on your own specialist track. Can you get to that point where you actually are able to say, if you do this, if you do that, then you will be right on the track to the next level, basically. There's one thing though to just recognize in this is that it's not necessarily the promotional part that is motivational, a big motivational factor for specialists. So what you want to identify and explore in your business is basically, are there other things that you can put into motion, basically? And instead of thinking, okay, how do you get to the next level? Then make the next level your own office. Make the next level ability to work with specific people, join in conferences, write some scientific papers and stuff like that. You can create that as the next level, you could say. Then, as we could find in the research that we did, is that would be a very much stronger motivation for retaining specialists. Yeah.
And if I can just add, that checklist, that's not solely for the specialist. Everyone is asking for that. And I think it's what you said earlier about many of us are brought up with having this, we need to move upwards in order to be successful. So having those conversations with managers or HR partners or whoever it is who's supporting in that, sort of opening up and say, okay, what is it? Why do we want that promotion? What is it you expect out of that promotion? And then we can start dissecting a little more. Okay, maybe it's not the budget or the senior stakeholders you need to interact with. It's something different. So can we make that work without necessarily pushing you into a position where you might not thrive because there are some more expectations or additional expectations to it?
Exactly.
And just one comment from here is this thing about creating team performance and keep focusing on team performance, not on individual performance. So what is the checklist? One of the things, if we should talk about checklist, is that we should get them empowered to really create teams that are performing instead of having like individual KPIs for each and every.
All right, we'll just have one more
question.
Yeah,
Then,
there's a question here. Is there any experience with the structured approach to job rotation, or is it more specialist by specialist? I mean, is job rotation basically a tool that you can use in developing and retaining a specialist? I'll ask you first if you have any experience with that, or is that something you've been discussing in Ludwig as well?
Yes, absolutely. So it's actually part of the goals for our R&D leadership that they need to have X amount of rotations in the organization. So it's something we work with. Is it structured? I think some will challenge that, to be honest. It's very much depending on leaders collaborating. So when they have development talks with their employees, something comes up of interest, they want to work with someone in research or maybe the project management. And then it's the leaders who reach out to each other to facilitate it. Is that structured? Maybe not, but it works. For now, that's how we do it.
Yeah. And I think, from the research that we did on this, I would say that one pitfall you can find is that if you force specialists into a job rotation, basically, I mean, you really need to be careful in putting people in a situation that they're not comfortable in, basically, because where some would think, okay, I can live with that. 2 years from now, I get a higher paycheck. I'll be moving in another direction. This is cool. Then a specialist would usually have to say, nah, this is not good. I'm on the wrong place right now. And I think there was another comment on the notion of looking at a career path as rising on a ladder or climbing a ladder, and basically that it can be regarded as a demotion. Basically, why am I put in a different place? I'm not happy with what I do. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, definitely think about the autonomy of a specialist. That what they really like is to be in charge of the development they're going into as well. Yeah.
So now it's time to end the session. We would say very warm welcome to everyone that was here. And our email addresses is on the next slide here. And we hope to see you again when we meet on the 10th of September from 9 to 11 in Ida, where we will look into this thing about new ways of leading. And also a big thank you to you, Ann-Katrine.
Yeah, thanks.
I have a couple of bottles of wine and a book, and it's been a very much pleasure to have you here, but also a very thank you for the collaboration and the relation we have. So thank you for that. Yeah. So everybody have a good Friday, have a good weekend, enjoy the sun, and see you again soon, hopefully.
Thank you all.